It's been a good place to be. It's one in a million, and I don't know how they do it. And it is the people. It's only as good as the people who are here to assist us.
On October 14th, 2020, Dogwood Village of Orange County, Virginia, celebrates its 50th birthday. Since those humble beginnings, it has prospered, grown, and adapted to changing circumstances. It has so far survived a deadly pandemic without a single case among its residents. It has consistently won awards of excellence, not just on the state, but also on the national level. It continues to be one of the top 3 employers in Orange County, and some of its employees are still there after 30, even 40 years. Dogwood Village is truly a special place.
And we always say it's the best place to live and the best place to work. That's our premise. We just want to make sure that it is the best place to live and the best place to work.
It all started back in the mid-1960s when Supervisor R. Monroe Waugh approached fellow Supervisor Lindsay Gordon.
One Sunday afternoon, Monroe Waugh, who was also on the Board of Supervisors, went to Lindsay's house. And they were sitting out on the front porch, and Monroe said to Lindsay, "We need to build ourselves a nursing home." He said, "My mother is getting to the point where we need someplace for people like her to be and be cared for, and that we're comfortable with."
He went down to Washington, went up to Washington, and got as well as I remember, $365,000 Hill-Burton grant. And he presented it to the supervisors, and he sort of ran Orange County at the time, and they all agreed, as far as I know, all of them, to give it a try.
And so that really was the beginning of it. That was probably, I don't know the exact date, but it was mid-1960s, 66 maybe, somewhere along in there, because the board actually approved the acquisition of the land and the construction of the first phase in something like 67, I think it was.
But then, a lot of rumpus was heard. A lot of people were opposed to it. And they said, "It's socialism." Well, I said, so schools, even pro-school people were opposed to it because they are afraid that they're going to take the money from the school budget and put it on the nursing home. That's the way it started. And it immediately became a success story.
By 1974, the original 51-bed facility was full to capacity, with 150 on the waiting list. 69 new beds were added, and the employee roster went from 64 to 100.
The supervisors had to borrow money to do it, and they went ahead, and it was the same objections, the same people, basically.
In 1982, the nursing home grew again, adding the south wing. With this addition, they created a 34-bed assisted living facility. Ever since 1974, the Orange County Nursing Home had a training program in place for certified nursing assistants. By 1983, the Commission saw a new need among those employees.
And so we organized a daycare center down there so that the particularly, I hate to use the word welfare, social services is a better word, they could bring their children, put them in the daycare, and they would work their 8 hours and then pick up their children and go home. Of course, my mother-in-law was a resident there for 9 years, and she had Alzheimer's, and my father-in-law was old, and he didn't know how to take care of an old lady who had Alzheimer's, because my father-in-law had 13 nurses around the clock, 7 days a week. It was 2 at a time, and Mary had to handle the business of that, and it was like deduct Social Security and so and I had to print her up a file on how to pay these nurses. And so when my mother-in-law went to the nursing home, the file ended, and he was paying, we figured, I never did, more than $100,000 a year to keep her at home with all these nurses.
Jim White came on board with the Nursing Home Commission in 1999. He remembers a visit from Lindsay Gordon.
He was a very persuasive person. He came by the house one day and sat down and said he was going to leave when I agreed to become part of the Nursing Home Commission. And he wasn't kidding. It was shortly after that we were sort of assessing the community and said, what's the other need? What's an unfilled need that we're not addressing? Because we kept hearing from people that were going to the hospital and getting surgery, knee replacements, or whatever. They needed a place to go after hospital stay, but before they were able to go home. That made a lot of changes. Instead of seeing a couple of hundred residents during the course of a year, the skilled nursing facility itself, as you know very well, would have 300 or 400 in and outs during the course of the year. People would come for a couple of weeks or a month at most, and then be gone, go home in most cases, fortunately, and then someone else would come in after surgery for that. So that was another big step toward trying to be a resource for the community, assessing the needs of the community, and trying to respond to it.
When Dogwood Village celebrated its 35th anniversary in October of 2005, the facility had 134 beds with assisted living, specialized dementia, and skilled nursing components. The nursing home employed 225 people, 160 of which were full-time. Already it had 10 employees who had served 30 years or more, and their staff-to-resident ratio was 8-to-1, nearly twice that of comparable facilities. One more thing. Their volunteers put in 5,200 hours in 2005.
Not long after that, we started conversations about the assisted living component of the business. At the time, it had grown from about a dozen beds up to maybe 30. But it was in the old building. That was all we had room for, was about 34, I think the number was, something like that.
In 2007, Dogwood Village embarked on the next leg of its journey, the construction of the new assisted living facility, where residents can live much as they did at home in 66 efficiency apartments. That project was completed in 2009.
About the time that the E911 transition in the county was taking place and the streets were going from numbers to names, the residents at now Dogwood Village picked the name of the road going in there as Dogwood. There were a lot of, as you know, there are a lot of dogwood trees in the gardens around there. We decided that it was time to move away from the negative connotations that were associated with the nursing home, because by that time, not only were we the traditional long-term care nursing facility, but we also had the skilled facility, and then we were planning on building this brand new building for the assisted living. And so it was time to sort of create a campus environment with all of that under one label. And we tried on different names and talked to lots of people, but we kept coming back to, the residents were right. This ought to be Dogwood Village. And so
today, Dogwood Village is just that, a village, a campus, a vibrant community that thrives despite ongoing challenges.
We take residents of all levels and means. You could walk in that building today and you could not tell which residents have lots of resources to work with and which ones have literally nothing. They're all treated the same. And that creates a problem because one of the things that does happen fairly frequently is people come to us with some resources, but we're living longer and we outlive our resources. And so all of a sudden we have these people in our care. We're not about to boot them out. And so we have to scramble to find ways of, helping them find resources to continue to stay there. Long term, that's probably a struggle that's not going to go away. I don't see any fixes on the horizon. And actually, it's going to get worse. The next struggle is going to be those that need mental health care, but have very limited resources, because mental health care is a very expensive level of care, because it can be 24/7, probably is 24/7 in a lot of cases, and the resources to cover that level of care don't exist anywhere in our whole network of health care.
Although it is owned by the County of Orange, it is run by a commission consisting of local people appointed by the Board of Supervisors.
That commission operates much like a board of directors of a corporation. We try to give guidance, try to facilitate the staff and the managers accomplishing what goals we've set out collectively. It is very much like running a business. In fact, Dogwood is a business. We have financial statements and budgets and plans and goals and objectives, and we hire people and we train people and we create career opportunities, all focused on the goal of trying to provide the very best, as our mission says, or our motto says, trying to make Dogwood the best place to live and the best place to work. It has to run in business-like fashion, because most people don't know this, but it does not get one penny of tax money from the citizens of Orange County. Not a penny. It is not a line item in the county budget, as a lot of people think. It lives entirely off its own revenues. If you discount the school system, which of course is the largest employer, and look at the more private sector-like employers, it's always either one or two. I mean, right now the employee base is 300 and something. I don't know the exact number, but it's into the 300s. The foundation was set up really as an endowment, which means that we invest the resources of the foundation to generate income, and we use that income to do projects for the nursing home, projects that the nursing home or senior living can't afford within their own budget constraints. We put a new roof on the old facility recently. We bought food storage freezers. We've redone the bath and shower rooms in the old facility. We built boxes so that the residents could grow vegetables in. We spent several $1 million over the course of the last few years doing projects like that.
Throughout its 50-year history, Dogwood has offered a wide range of activities for its residents, making sure their lives are constantly being enriched.
We bought some property that adjoins the Dogwood Village property a couple of years ago, without a specific plan in mind, but recognizing that we had no expansion possibilities on the campus where we are now. We've used up essentially all of the land, and so actually the foundation, Dogwood Village Foundation, purchased that land. And we've examined generally lots of different concepts. It's very possible that the next expansion or building could be for memory care residents only. It's also possible that the next build could be a skilled nursing facility specifically, because that's a different need than we can meet now. And then, of course, there's just the pure expansion in terms of number of beds that we need. It's impossible to really summarize the 50 years other than the role that it took on at its founding, I think still is the fundamental role. And that in and of itself is pretty remarkable. It was founded, those of us who are old enough to have been adults in the late 1960s, there was a very different time with a very different set of circumstances in terms of the whole healthcare environment, and yet guys like Monroe Wall and Lindsay and the other board members, you know, they had a vision of something that I'm sure in their minds was to last for the long term, and by golly, they were right.
This is a special place. Just like the three legs of a stool, Dogwood Village relies on a tried and true support structure. Patty Talley came to Dogwood fresh out of JMU with a degree in social work. That was in 1981. She's been at Dogwood ever since. For her, it all began when she would visit a resident, Miss Flossie Bell.
And at that time, I would ask my mom every week, can we go see Miss Bell? She says, well, you really like that nursing home? I said, yes, ma'am, I would like to go as often as I can. So that's how I got started with Dogwood Village. This is my home. My second home, my first home is with my family, but my second home is Dogwood Village. For sure. No questions about that. I've already picked out my room. As far as administrators, I have worked for lots of administrators and lots of director of nursing, and I've never been disappointed. We've always had great leadership at Dogwood Village. Amazing leadership, not just great leadership, but people that are so vested and just care about what they're doing, and that's huge. And that's what I think that speaks volumes about the reputation of Dogwood Village because of the leadership that we've had in the many years past. And great board members too. We're just blessed to have Jim White, Lee Frame, Philip Frazier, and then we've added 2 more board members, Sam Kessler and Deanne Marshall. And they've already started, so we're just blessed to have good leadership from Orange County. When I first came, I was young, 22, right out of college, and I was an easy fix because they played tricks on me all the time. The residents would use me. They would say, well, we'll get Patty to do it, and they'd call me and they'd say, can you do this? And they would trick me all the time about what they could have. Like if they were diabetic, can you go get me some chocolate candy? And of course, I didn't know any better, so I'm out there looking for chocolate candy and find out the next day, well, this person was diabetic, but I was just easy fix, you know. Yeah, I didn't really know any better at the time, but you know, they knew I was young and innocent, so they tricked me to do things for them. Since I've been here almost 40 years, now we're taking care of the children of the parents I took care of back 20 years ago. So I'm seeing generations of people coming to Dogwood Village. It's amazing. So the people that were here as patients 20 years ago, now their children are coming to be at Dogwood Village. To me, that speaks volumes, that the generations of people that we're serving here in Orange County.
Being a staffer at Dogwood Village requires a special kind of person, a person with infinite patience sometimes.
Well, I needed some assistance, and my mother had Alzheimer's, and we couldn't care for her any longer at home, so we looked into Dogwood, and it was a real blessing. And even she had the night terrors, and she wasn't the most pleasant person to be around, but every time I was there, they showed the utmost respect for her as an individual. And she wasn't there all that long, but the time that she was there, I felt very comfortable that she was really being cared for, since I couldn't be with her all the time.
One of my favorite ones was early in the time when we opened up trick-or-treating for the community at Dogwood. I remember going to a time when the kids would come down the hallways, basically past the rooms of the residents, and the residents would reach into a basket of candy, and they didn't pick out a piece of candy. They picked out whatever they could get in their 2 hands and offer it to the child. Well, needless to say, we ran out of candy after about 30 minutes, and we went up and bought everything that Food Lion had on the shelves in order to keep, because the response, not only from the children, but from the residents, was just, I will never forget that response. It was truly amazing. I remember one resident who will remain unnamed that found a way of getting a special delivery from the ABC store And this person, I won't even tell you whether it's male or female, held some real parties.
The hardest thing of all is dealing with the loss.
Yeah, it really takes someone very, very special, I think, to work at a nursing, skilled care, assisted living, because it's got to be, if you care at all, it's got to be heart-wrenching to lose them. It has to be.
And the frequency is astounding. I mean, we have many deaths a month, typically. It's almost never zero, and it's frequently 5, 6, 7, 8 in a month. And it takes a special team of people to be able to, work in that environment and be cheerful and these kind of things, and yet, control their own emotions. Because you very quickly develop a relationship with someone.
Yeah. I have a friend whose grandson works at the nursing home, and oftentimes he'll come home in tears because he lost somebody he really enjoyed being around.
It's hard. It's the worst thing about the job is just losing our great folks. And they're all like our families. And this even more prevalent through the COVID-19 process because they couldn't see family members, so we're all their next of kin, as far as I'm concerned, that we're doing as much as we can for them as their family.
Right. This COVID-19 has really
taken a toll. Early on, we had a few staff that tested positive without any symptoms at all, but we have had not the first patient here to test positive for COVID-19, not the first patient. It speaks volumes about what we do here at Dogwood Village. Infection control is a priority. Gowns, gloves, masks, whatever it takes. Wash your hands, hands sanitizer. Social distancing, we do it all. It's so important. And, that means you change your lifestyle at home, too. It's just not coming to work and taking care of residents at work. At home and in the community, you're doing the same thing that you would do at work. Wearing your mask, taking care of yourself to make sure you're not subjected to the virus. It's so important. But staff have gone over and above to take care of our residents, for sure. That is the saddest thing. It's just losing our great people. It takes a lot of faith and a lot of hope because there's a better place. When you're struggling and suffering, you know that life is not about struggling and suffering. It's a better place sometimes. There's worse things than dying. We all have the whole idea about, we see people here every day and we know there's worse things than dying. So we just say they're in a better place. That's how we cope.
Backing up the staff is a core of volunteers, many of whom have or have had loved ones here as residents.
We have a large group of volunteers. They're called the Golden Horseshoe Volunteers, and Brenda Hutchinson is our volunteer coordinator. And right now we have maybe 75 to 100 volunteers that are active in this facility. And so we try to make them feel very comfortable. And a lot of our volunteers come here as residents later on in their lives, that speaks volumes. That means they like it, and that means they care about it.
But finally, I got her here, and she stayed here 18 months. Miss Bedina wanted me to volunteer because I come in a theater and took care of everything. So when she passed away, she wanted me to volunteer, and I started volunteering. I worked in the garden program. I come every time, get set up for the shows that they had.
Well, the elderly, I find, are a great treasure, and they have an awful lot to offer. So I enjoy talking to them whenever I can.
Yeah, the volunteers, I see the volunteers a lot like the foundation. They're that extra layer of interaction and assistance, frankly, to the staff.
It was a family place. When I'd go down there, I'd meet all these other people. It just got more popular, and I have not heard anybody complain about it in the last 10 or 15 years, maybe 20. And so it's just special. I picked several, my wife and I picked several ladies that didn't have any family. We would just visit them, and they really improved. We'd send them a Christmas card and Easter card and everything. And And I got to know a whole lot of people, and then the families of the residents and whatnot. But that is, I don't know whether all nursing homes across the country are like that or not. I don't believe they are.
Well, I think it goes all the way back to the beginnings. It was started with the vision of meeting a need for the residents of the community to the highest possible standards that we could achieve. I mean, the nice thing about Dogwood is the community, by and large, is well aware of what goes on there. If we have issues or challenges, the community will respond. Sometimes it's with fundraisers and things like this, but more often than not, it's in other ways, whether it's volunteers that need to step up the pace a little bit because of certain situations and these kind of things. And so I really think that the expectations and the clear feedback that the community has given about what they want Dogwood to be has really driven the Dogwood to be what it is. It's a challenge to meet those expectations. It really is. The community understands very well the jewel that they have, and they insist on it remaining over time. So I think it's just reflective of the community. That's really, it sounds a little funny, but that's what drives it to be what it is.
Many years ago, Duff Green came to the then Orange County Nursing Home for a board meeting. It was Good Friday, cold and wet. He went through the exterior doors only to have his way blocked by a box.
And I took my foot and I kicked the box to the side, and a baby cried. And I turned, cold, and I looked down in there, and there was a naked baby who had kicked off his blanket, and he was raising Cain. I can't think of the girl's name, who was the receptionist there then. I'll come after a while. Came out and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I said, "The blank door is locked, and look what I got here." And she said, "What is it?" And I picked the box up. I went into the vestibule in front, and I took the top off, and she screamed. She screamed and almost fainted. And Dolores, administrator, came running out and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I said, "Dolores, this is wrong." She knew exactly what the situation was. She got on the intercom and said, "I need some nurses up here. We have found a baby on the front door." And every nurse in the place came to take care of her. And they immediately called the rescue squad, and they came and took the UVA hospital, and it was about a 8.5 pound healthy baby boy. The nurses named the little boy Peter Rabbit. And the reason they named it, because it was Good Friday. And so the name was, everybody knew his name was Peter Rabbit.
31 years later, Peter Rabbit came back to thank Duff Green and find his birth parents. It's ironic that Dogwood Village, whose mission is to enrich the end stage of life, now was witness to the beginning stage of life.
It takes a lot of faith and a lot of hope, because there's a better place. When you're struggling and suffering, you know that life is not about struggling and suffering, and it's a better place sometimes. There's worse things than dying. We all have this whole idea about, we see people here every day, and we know there's worse things than dying. So we just say they're in a better place. That's how we cope. And the inspiration for us is the residents know that too, and they always tell us that, I'm not afraid of dying because, I'm going to be in a better place. So they tell us that, and that's kind of reassuring for us too, as we hold their hand and make sure they're comfortable in their last minutes, the last days. It's powerful. It's such a sweet message that people just really care about what they're doing in Dogwood Village. They really do.
I just can't think of anything that I want or need or should have. I can't think of anything because everything is all taken care of just so quietly, you know. I don't feel like anybody's going out of their way for me because I wouldn't like that. I really wouldn't. Right. But it's a pleasant stay.